Hello there, everybody. It's time to show what I bought at last week's record fair that we had here in Sundsvall. Unfortunately, I can't show any footage from it because 1 week ago I had problem with my SD card and I didn't have enough space to film on the camera itself. So unfortunately I had no possibility to film inside of the record fair this time. I guess you had a pretty good hunch by now how it looked like anyway. But now I have a new SD card, so yeah, I'm filming on that right now, so everything worked out fine. But that doesn't stop me from showing what I bought. I thought that this spring record fair was maybe a little bit lame. There were a good amount of sellers and it was a great variety of prices, both cheaper records and there were more expensive records. But there were a couple of competing events in the city, so I know, of course there were people there buying, there were customers there all the time, but it wasn't that kind of flood of people as it had been previous times. So let's see what happens in October, because the date is already set for the autumn version of this record fair. I decided to do a little cheaper fair and not buy all that much expensive. I think I managed pretty good with that. I bought a stack of full-length vinyls and a stack of vinyl singles. So all this I have to show. Let's start with these vinyl singles and start with some Swedish stuff. Swedish comedy. This is Swedish comedians Stig Järrel and Gösta Bernhard. Ensling and Johannes. Johannes the lone wolf. It's about Gösta Bernhard calling this old man who is a loner somewhere out in the woods and all of his experiences. Pretty good stuff. Swedish rock singer Louise Hoffsten, I mentioned her before. I found two of her absolute greatest songs on singles. Opium for Day, Opium for You. Take a look at who wrote it. It says B. Adams. I have to check it out. I never realized that it might be. I hope it could be Bryan Adams. Sounds a little too strange to be that, but it's a great song nonetheless. And this is one I'm very happy to find. This is Yeah Yeah. An amazing rock and roll song with a lot of horns and lot of very much groove. Really great one. I'm pretty sure that it is on YouTube, so check that one out. Now here we have another comedy. Swedish female comedian Birgitta Andersson and the comedy sketch Sveriges vackraste röst, the most beautiful voice of Sweden. Now let's leave the Swedish stuff. We have some jazz. This is Jack Teagarden. In memoriam Jack Teagarden, jazz maker Jack Teagarden. And we have Joe Thomas, Jack Teagarden, Hank D'Amico, Coleman Hawkins, Herman Chittison, Billy Taylor, and George Wettling. Recording date 1944. And they play Home, To Marvelous Words, Somebody Loves Me, and You Brought the New Kind of Love to Me. This one left me with some questions. I have gotten most of them answered by now. This is a Swedish jazz record. It says Jazz at Academic. Of course, it is a version of Jazz at the Philharmonic. Glenn Müller, with the German U, goes to college. And Glenn Miller, of course, a spoof of Glenn Miller. But if you take a look at the musicians here, many of them are parodies of famous jazz musicians. We have Essie Gillespie, Dizzy Gillespie. We have Cornet Holman, which I haven't figured out whether it is Coleman Hawkins or Ornette Coleman. Ornette Coleman wasn't all that famous yet back in 1962 when this was recorded. So I'm not really that sure. We have Rat Anderson, Cat Anderson, you see, Rat, Cat. We have S.S. Svensson, who of course is a version of J.J. Johnson. And we have Harry Corney, as in Harry Carney. Baronius Splonk, Thelonious Monk, naturally. And we have Pommy Frites, who is Tommy Potter in some form. And my favorite, Nay Jones. Now, going to explain this. Nay, it is a parody, of course, of Joe Jones. And Joe, J-O, in Swedish means yes. While Nay Jones, N-E-J, means no. So it's a Swedish version of yes and no. And we have also the string quartet Njurstenarna, the Kidney Stones. Anita O'Monson, who is Anita O'Day. And Elsa Fitzgerald. So it's a pure comedy of everything. And what was mysterious is that it doesn't say anything about who the real musicians are. Other than this is recorded in 1962 in Uppsala University local. I've been doing some checking on Facebook, asking people around, and this is some kind of a student comedy or student orchestra, and some kind of a student comedy thing with students having a lot of fun, and this label, as it is released on, is called ARR, which stands for Arken Rund Radio, which are their student radio that they had. So this is most likely some kind of a student comedy, but musically it is very interesting. They play Bugle Call Rag, Putte och Simon, and Jumping at the Woodside. And it's very, very interesting with a lot of fun stuff. In Bugle Call Rag, all of a sudden, Baronius Splonk gets the idea of playing some classical pieces of classical music in jazz arrangement all of a sudden. Almost like Victor Borge or something like that. So it's very, very extremely, I'm not going to say it's the best orchestra I ever heard, definitely not, but it's pretty funny thing to have, and it's funny that it was so mysterious and to track down what it actually was. Fleetwood Mac, Hold Me, from the Mirage album. And we have Chicago and Make Me Smile, and on the other side, Color My World. This is from their second album, single, released in 1970. And we have Curtis Mayfield, This Year, and This Year Instrumental, released in 1979. Hi there. And we have Belgian, I think, synth group Telex, and a song called Eurovision, which is their song in the 1979 Eurovision Song Contest. And it was, the lyric is making fun of the contest itself. 1980, sorry. I'm not going to say that this is one of my favorite Eurovision songs, but fun to have nonetheless, as I collect old Eurovision singles. Now let's go to the bigger vinyls. I found this one, Crusaders, Street Life, and I've been listening to it, and it is actually a good album, definitely a good album. Of course, this one contains the song Street Life with Randy Crawford doing the singing. I think they could have given much more credit to Randy Crawford that they did. It says nothing here on the back. You have to go way in here to find Randy Crawford's name. Somewhere here, Randy Crawford appears courtesy of. I think they could have given her a little more notice for the things she did on this, the vocals she did on this song actually. But overall, a really good album, really good Crusaders album from 1979. This one I've also listened to. I was extremely happy to find it. This is Jackson's live, and it's from 1981. A double LP set, a live concert from New York, I think. And this one is a really great album, and really funky. And if you thought that the other Jackson members were in the back of the band before, Michael is taking even more place here. But it's a really great album. Great band, everything. It's interesting to hear Michael say what they're doing a comedy thing when they're going to do a medley of the old Jackson 5 songs from the 70s and from the 60s and early 70s, and Michael say, "Hey, we have an album to promote. It's much more important." Out of 14 songs, there are 3 songs only from their Triumph album, which was their then latest album here. So they don't promote that album all that hard actually, but it is a great album, really funky and amazing live album. The Brothers Johnson and Blam from 1978. Of course, it has Quincy Jones written all over. I haven't listened all that much to Art of Noise, and some of what I've heard have been really good. Some of them have been real strange, but a couple of songs with Art of Noise that I really like, and that is their version of Peter Gunn featuring Dwayne Eddy, and it also their song Parano Me Up, Parano Me Up, Parano Me Up, a really great one. So I bought their album Invisible Silence from 1986. And this was actually the only real, no, not the only real, but one of few 80s albums I bought. I have a wish to come to a thrift store or something like that and find a whole bunch of 80s albums that I don't have. Because now when I go, the problem with having such a huge collection with 80s albums is that everywhere you go, that I have at least 85% of everything in the boxes. It would be fun once to come to a thrift store and find a whole bunch of 80s that I don't have and just be able to buy them and say, hey, finally, a great time finding 80s records, because it's been real so with finding 80s records as of late. The other 80s album I found was Prince and his Around the World in a Day. And it of course contains Paisley Park and Raspberry Beret and so on. I had this one on cassette. I thought it was a copy, but it's actually a real cassette that I have. But it's also great to have it on vinyl. Found a couple of albums with Captain and Tennille for I think only $1 or $2 each. This is Dream from 1978. And Keeping Our Love Warm from 1980. Keeping Our Love Warm. And then of course they have to be in a sauna to do it. It's going to be very interesting. And finally I also bought a jazz album. One jazz album I managed to find. And it's this with Lionel Hampton and his Paris All-Star, the complete 1953 Paris session, released on Vogue. And the Paris musicians contains the more famous Mesro, and that one was the most famous besides Hampton himself. Then it is Walter Williams, Al Hayes, Clifford Scott, Alex Campbell, and so on, names I'm not all that familiar with, but it sounds real interesting, real special, so it's going to be very great to listen to this one. And I managed to keep the costs down, because mostly it was $1, $2, maybe $4. So I managed to keep the prices down pretty good this spring on both the fairs, both the Sundsvall Record Fair and this one. So that was the Spring Record Fair. Hopefully you have enjoyed what I found. So until next time, take care everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what you do, and see ya.